most of what veterinarians know about dog nutrition comes from the pet food companies.
Simply put, the future of the dog food is sustainable, and you can't achieve it by animal-based product.
In my professional life, I saw much more meat-based diets that caused deficiencies than vegan diets.
We are not replacing the meat ingredient per se, but we're rather replacing the process, the way that it's manufactured.
Tällä hetkellä Suomessa on kaikki käytännössä jo vapaita kanoja. Tällä hetkellä niillä on ihan hyvä tilanne, parempi kuin monella ihmisellä maailmassa.
Varsinkin sen märkäruoan osalta niin todella hälyttäviä. Eli siinä paukkuu jo niin kuin naudanlihan hiilijalanjälki rikki.
Jos miettii, että se verrokkituote on vaikka soijarouhe, mikä on valmistettu Brasiliassa, niin meidän vastaavan tuotteen hiilijalanjälki on noin 1/10 siitä.
Focus should be on nutrients they need and not on source of ingredients in diet.
Using bike products increases the environmental impacts by a factor of 1.4, so it's a 40% increase actually compared to if you used a human-grade meat.
And just to get rid of all animal products in the food chain, because we don't need it.
Jon Erik West is a Finnish journalist and documentary filmmaker. Dogs have been at the centre of Jon's life for about 30 years. Jon has been actively helping abandoned dogs in Finland and Spain for decades. During those years, Jon has taken nearly 300 dogs into his care. Currently, Jon has 7 dogs of his own, and with their assistance, he wants to find out if dogs can live a happy and healthy life on a 100% plant-based diet.
I've spent a lot of time researching what a dog really should eat. Every dog food manufacturer swears by their own truth, and many experts on the internet share information about what a dog really needs nutrition-wise. It's enough to make your head spin. I want to find out if dogs can live a healthy life on an entirely plant-based diet.
The supply of food for pets, especially dogs, is overwhelming. Every manufacturer assures you that there is just the right food for your dog. There is so much small text on the packaging and special ingredient names that the layman cannot understand. So, what ingredients does your dog really need in its food?
This really should be for human beings a very easy question, because dogs and humans are very, very, very much alike. They need proteins, and they actually need proteins that come from animal kingdom.
Dogs, like any species, don't need meat or any particular ingredients. What they need is nutrients. They need a certain set of nutrients for that species.
Dogs need same nutrient groups as any animal, including humans. The 6 main groups are water, protein, fats, carbohydrates, vitamins and minerals. Water is the most important nutrient.
And providing that you formulate a diet to include all the necessary nutrients and in the right proportions, there's no reason why dogs or any other species needs to eat meat.
Dogs have different nutritional needs, and this depends on their growth stage, size, and breeds as well. For example, puppies would require relatively more amino acids and essential fatty acids than adult dogs.
Then they need a lot of minerals like phosphor, calcium, things that they usually get from bone, tissue when they're eating prey animals.
It always depends on the overall composition of the diet. And just like as a side note, vitamins and other nutrients are also mandatory to be added in a meat-based diet. So this is not exclusively true for a vegan diet, but also for a meat-based complete feed that you would buy in a shop.
Then they do need a lot of trace elements, which are very small type of it can be also vitamins and trace elements. Those are kind of things they need in very, very small amounts, but that are super, super important because there's millions and millions and millions small processes happening in the metabolism in the body every day, so that you can change the food you eat into some kind of energy that you can use for living.
There's certainly more research in the field of meat-based diets, for sure, just historically speaking. But there is more and more research about plant-based or vegan diets in dogs. And I personally have seen in the past years also that more and more colleagues in the nutritional sector are offering meal plans that are entirely plant-based and that are offering vegan diets for their clients.
What I did find by accident was studies showing that dogs that have been maintained on various meat-based diets over time were developing health problems. And my experience as a veterinarian treating thousands of dogs in practice was that the rates of diseases such as cancer, obesity, liver disease seemed to be much higher than was natural. And I always wondered whether the diets that dogs were eating, which essentially was a long-term and often lifetime exposure to low levels of additives in their food, might in some way be contributing to what seem to be unnaturally high rates of some of these healthcare problems.
Scientifically speaking, there is no reason for me to believe that a vegan diet should be harmful for the dog if it is done correctly, if it provides all the nutrients a dog needs.
Sentient beings are not supposed to, die after 7 years or 15 years. They live up to 30, 35, 40. So we're doing something wrong. And also we want to reduce, of course, the reliance on resource-intensive meat production. And of course, recent scientific studies in animals have confirmed that dogs can thrive on responsibly supplemented plant-based diets.
Most kibble, in fact, no kibble, is 100% meat. And manufacturers might tout a high animal protein amount, inclusion level, but there are still plant ingredients in there. And so there are key nutrients that cats and dogs require that can come from plant matter.
But in general, of course, there is nutrients that you should look out for when purchasing a vegan product. There is essential nutrients that should always be supplemented, such as vitamin A, for example, or taurine, vitamin D3, or vitamin B12. So that should be something that is always displayed on the packaging.
Whatever dog pages you look at, they say that for your dog's nutrition, ask your veterinarian. Actually, in all around the globe, the veterinarians have 2 to 4 hours in 6 years on dog nutrition. They actually have more on cow nutrition, they have more on chicken nutrition because they're production animals, but pet animals and their nutrition is nothing that is kind of in the curriculum of the normal.
According to the Truth About Pet Food website, with sponsorship from the 3 biggest pet food manufacturers on the market, the World Small Animal Veterinary Association and Pet Nutrition Alliance are advising veterinarians, in quotes, to make a specific dietary recommendation to each and every pet owner that comes in. The veterinarians are told to repeatedly encourage pet owners to give their pets a recommended pet food even when the pet is determined to be perfectly healthy after an exam.
When you start a hospital, you usually get a starting sum from the big food companies if you're going to sell their products. So you might get 20,000 euros just as a kind of a bonus to build up shelves and things, and then they'll bring the products in. And so actually most of what veterinarians know about dog nutrition comes from the pet food companies. Also, our clinical animal nutrition, which is a Bible this thick, is actually the product of one of these big companies.
Not just anyone can start manufacturing dog food. When it comes to nutritional recommendations and complete and complementary food status, the abbreviations FIDIAF and AAFCO stand out. What are they? FIDIAF is the trade body representing the European pet food industry. 15 national trade associations and 5 companies, Affinity Pet Care, Hills Pet Nutrition, Mars Pet Care, Nestlé Purina Pet Care and WellPet, are members of the FIDIAF. FIDIAF has produced nutritional guidelines as a practical guide for pet food manufacturers. In US, the Association of American Feed Control Officials, AAFCO, is an independent organisation that has been guiding state, federal and international feed regulators with ingredient definitions, label standards and laboratory standards for more than 110 years, while supporting the health and safety of people and animals.
Buyers might not be aware that most of the meat-based dry food contain more plant ingredients than animal ingredients.
And during my time as a veterinarian, during 35 years, I must say that I have seen so many things that we now know is like totally essential coming into the diet. Like every year there's a new thing. Like I remember when glucosamine and chondroitin sulfate came in. I remember when omega-3 came in. I remember when taurine came in. All of these things that are totally essential, and the only way that they've found how essential they are is that they have not been there.
For buyer, it is quite hard to be sure what food is good quality. Without the feeding trials, evaluation.
For instance, in US, one of the ways for a company to be able to claim that its food is complete and balanced, scientifically proven, 100% complete nutrition, or similar, it must have completed an American Association of Feed Control Officials approved feeding trial. These guidelines are tested during a 26-week feeding trial, where a group of dogs are given the meal exclusively during that time to monitor various health parameters and how well they do on the study diet. Despite strict guidelines for dog food manufacturers, consumers cannot always rely on labelling.
And based on only what they can see, most of the time limited information on labels and many times misleading claims. My advice is for buyers that they stick to reputable brands, read labels carefully, seek clarification from manufacturers when needed, and choose food that has presented all ingredients and nutritional information with around 20 different nutrients.
The big dog food companies have own research centers, and the bad thing is that they don't publish. They do it for their own benefit, so to know what is good and what is bad.
A vegan diet as well as a meat-based diet can cause deficiencies or lack essential nutrients, but that is all about combining the right ingredients. So if you combine the right ingredients and supplements, a vegan diet is just as well complete and balanced as a meat-based diet can be.
Excess nutrients can harm a dog's health more than deficiency. For example, many dog owners have heard of food recalls that happen after accidental overdosing of, for example, vitamin D in dry and canned pet foods. The consequences can be serious and cause calcium buildup and organ damage.
In society, dogs have become fellow species like humans, at least in the eyes of dog owners. And not surprisingly, a majority of dog owners say they would consider ending a relationship if the pet disapproved of the partner. Most dog owners celebrate canine birthdays, and nearly 2/3 report that they take more photos of their dogs than of family members. These, in quotes, dog people, are prepared to spend more and more money on their dog's grooming, accessories, and, above all, food. Many dog owners want their dogs to eat the same or very similar food to what they put in their own mouths. But would these self-proclaimed animal lovers eat or feed their dogs, say, dog meat? Probably not, at least not in Western societies, where the idea of eating dogs raises eyebrows and outrage against other cultures where eating dogs is as normal as eating any other animal. An August 2024 article in the New York Times speaks to this very hypocrisy. As we increasingly pamper our dogs, we cheerfully accept the torture of pigs. Businessman James Spratt introduced the first commercially prepared pet food in England around 1860. After seeing dogs being fed leftover biscuits from a ship, Spratt formulated the first dog biscuit, a mixture of wheat flour, vegetables, beetroot and beef blood. Probably the first canned dog food was Ken L. ration, introduced in 1922. Its main ingredient was horse meat, which was considered an acceptable ingredient source at the time. Today, most common commercial dog foods are either so-called complete food or complementary food. Complete foods are meat-based and plant-based, vegan or vegetarian for healthy dogs. Or meat-based and all plant or almost all plant-based, vegan and vegetarian veterinary prescribed foods for dogs with health problems. Complete foods include all required nutrients that are balanced in a proper ratio. Complementary foods require extra supplementation to become complete and balanced. For instance, high-protein complementary food that needs adding vitamins and minerals. The commercial pet food forms are moist, semi-moist and dry. And for instance, moist food contains 60% to over 87% of water and the rest is dry matter. Protein, fat, carbohydrate, vitamins and minerals and additives. Semi-moist food contains 25 to 35% of water and dry food up to 3 to 11% of water. Besides these three, there are freeze-dry foods and frozen raw meaty diets available. And of course treats, which are mainly used for development of human-pet companion bond development. The treats are either meaty or plant origin.
Well, like all commercially available food, it has to be a complete and balanced diet. And of course, the dog has to like it. So those are the main points that you always have to look out for in a food. It has to meet the nutritional requirements, but it also has to be tasty and the dog has to like and enjoy it.
We've kind of created is a system where dog food has to be complete and balanced to be sure that if a person would give it for long times, the dog would still kind of be alive and thrive. Or maybe not thrive, but at least stay alive.
So basically, like I understand why businesses and consumers love dry food. It's definitely cheaper to make, more convenient and easy to ship. That said, these days there are a lot of health concerns associated with kibbles and dry food that are made at a very high temperature. They are highly processed, which decreases the nutritional value of the food. Kibbles are also proven to be cancerous and not healthy for our lovely dogs.
In general, unfortunately, there is many commercial products that are not balanced and complete, although they are labeled as such. But that is true for both vegan and meat-based products. So it's important that the brand that produces the respective food, whatever food you choose, runs nutrient analysis on their products to ensure that all the nutritional requirements are actually met in the product. And that is something that you should look out for in the brand that you choose, also for a vegan diet.
Also, all my colleagues, they talk about that the food has to be complete and balanced. Well, it has to be complete and balanced for you and me and for the dog. So if you're giving your children the same food every day for 12 years, or if you're going to give your dog the same food every day for 12 years, then every meal has to be complete and balanced because you're not changing anything.
In recent years, there has been a trend towards raw food and raw feeding. Some people love it, and yes, some people think it is inadequate and even dangerous for dogs.
If I think about raw food, what is that? I would say that it is, it's the thing that you are looking at a food which is non-processed. It is not heat processed, but it can be chopped, it can be mixed, it can be frozen. So these are actually processing methods, but they're very non-heated. They don't destroy any of the vitamins or the amino acids or the big structures of proteins.
Some critics say that raw food, especially the meat in it, can contain bacteria, parasites, or other cancerous elements that would normally be killed in the cooking process. Is this something dog owners should be aware of and watch out for?
This is actually a very interesting question, and because I am a veterinarian and I knew that I would get kind of a lot of criticism for our research if I wouldn't handle this first. And what we could see in one of the studies, for example, was that when we were looking at the raw feeding, kind of raw food that is made as a complete and balanced food and is sold as a complete and balanced raw food from companies in Finland, we could see that we had very little of Listeria, Salmonella, Yersinia, all of these pathogens. Whereas actually in the sample of 10 human foods that were taken from a normal supermarket, we actually had about 10 times more.
Anna Hilm Bjorkman is the leader of a research group called Dog Risk, the only independent and university-based research group in the world which analyses the connections between diets, environmental factors, and chronic diseases that affect dogs. Anna's team sent out a questionnaire to 17,000 dog owners who had been feeding raw food for a long time, even many years. The results are quite interesting.
So we sent out a questionnaire to 17,000 dog owners that had been using raw food for a longer time. So we had kind of the material for 69,000 dog years at risk. And there were 3 instances where they had positively found the same bacteria in the dog food as in the people in the family that got sick and got the diarrhea. So the risk is really, really, really small. And I wouldn't say that at this time it's maybe even smaller than from the dry food.
Despite the fact that feeding raw food to dogs may involve risks, Anna Hilm Bjorkman's team also found significant health benefits from raw feeding, as demonstrated in clinical feeding trials where one group was fed raw food and the other dry food.
So what we could see was that the raw food changed the genes. So we had a gene expression that was totally different in the raw fed group. Interesting was that there were very little things that happened, which means that there is the dog can actually use the food it is kind of digesting or getting in. And we could see only things like there was a better immune response, there was less inflammation, and there was a better antioxidant status. So all of these genes were expressed more.
The results and outcomes of the other trial group, which was given the dry food, were quite different.
Whereas in the dry food group, we had about 800 things that were statistically happening. And none of them had to do with health. They had just to do with trying to change the food into something that the dog could use. And I think that's very kind of interesting to see that actually what we're giving them when we're cooking their food, we have ultra processed ingredients that are put in together. There's a lot of things that are kind of man-made antioxidants, man-made minerals, man-made amino acids. And when all of these are put into the dog, they actually don't know what to do with them. So there's a super metabolic kind of war starting when everybody is trying to do something with the food that comes in so that they could put it into the mitochondria so that it could be used as fuel.
Despite the hype and active tendency of raw meat diets among dog owners and some veterinarians worldwide, there are more than 80 studies showing pathogenic hazards of these diets, risking both dogs and people who share households with them.
Raw meaty diets provide excessive protein and fat due to their unbalanced diet plan. Such diets for sure will be beneficial for active dogs like sledge dogs by supplying high energy from fats and high level of protein needed for hard work and muscle reparation.
There is studies on how raw diets are deficient in one or more nutrients in 80 to 90% of cases. So from a scientific point of view, as a veterinarian, in my professional life, I saw much more meat-based diets that caused deficiencies than vegan diets.
Raw meaty diet is not appropriate food for our less active pets at home. Just to give few examples, excess of protein in raw meat diets, particularly rich in sulfur-containing amino acid methionine, are linked to cancer according to the research. Excess phosphorus can damage kidneys and cause osteoporosis. Low-quality protein and rancid fat that are in high amounts in raw diets are associated with chronic ulcer, cancer, and pancreatic damage in dogs.
Today, literally, the times they are a-changing in the lives of Jon's dogs. They are being fed vegan kibbles for the first time ever. Jon has been given precise advice by the veterinary nutritionist. And in the first week, Jon has to measure out a certain amount of food for each dog. 75% of the old kibbles and 25% of the vegan one. In weeks 2 and 3 it would be half of old and half vegan. And in week 4, 25% of the old food and 75% of the vegan food. And finally from week 5, all vegan food. Jon is following each dog carefully to see if they are emptying their cups. Jon has decided to put some of the dogs in their own cages during feeding time. This way, it is much easier to check eating habits and if someone does not like the food. And, of course, not rushing to the other dogs' bowls. When Jon is sure all the dogs have eaten, he lets them out and closes the cages. The cages are only used during feeding time. We only have winners in the first round. All the cups are empty. Hang on, not all. Frida has left some food.
Jäi vanhaa ruokaa. Niin jäi. Vanhaa ruokaa jäi. Oi. Oliko pahaa vanhaa ruokaa? Oli.
Processing methods for meat-based or plant-based dog food are the same. The difference is that the protein source is entirely plant-based. Manufacturing plants, factories, are common for both types of food or can be done in the separate manufacturing plants. Commercial pet food manufacturing starts with the starting ingredients purchased in big quantities, tons, and most often from distant destinations. The preference for ingredient choice depends on the price and guaranteed acceptable quality of ingredients from the suppliers.
Eli 2018 heräsin tämmöiseen tilanteeseen, että Suomessa valmistetaan vain 1% lemmikkien kuivaruokia ja 99% tuodaan. Saman aikaan täällä ihmisille on lihantuotantoa, kalantuotantoa, mistä tulee sivuvirtoja, mitä käytetään lemmikkiruokien valmistamiseen. Ne on prosessoitu Honkajoki Oy:n toimesta ja toimitettu sitten Eurooppaan ja kolmansiin maihin Kanadaan myöten ja tuotu jalostettuna takaisin. Niin ei ole mitään järkeä viedä jalostamattomia tuotteita kauas ja tuoda jalostettuna takaisin. Niin se oli niin kuin päälähtökohta tähän ja sitten päättiin lähteä niin kuin isosti ja tehdä hyvät tuotteet Suomen markkinoille.
Meillähän on tuo lemmikkiruokateollisuus noussut viimeisen vuosikymmenen aikana, että sitä ennen sitä ei juurikaan ollut. Se on ollut hieno homma. 2017 meillä tuli tämä siipikarjajauholinja ja sen seurauksena sitten lemmikkiruokateollisuus myös Suomeen.
Honkajoki on tosiaan renderöintiyritys. Tarkoittaa sitä, että me kerätään ja jalostetaan kotimaisesta lihantuotannosta tulevat sivutuotteet, eli suomalaisilta teurastamolta tulee pääosa raaka-aineesta, sen lisäksi lihanleikkaamolta ja kotimaisilta maatiloilta. Suomessahan on raatokeräily käytössä, eli kaikki maatiloilla kuolevat tuotantoeläimet pitää kerätä, ja se on tosiaan meidän vastuulla, ja me kerätään joka arkipäivä kotimaasta tulleet kuolleet eläimet, ja meillähän ne on arvokasta raaka-ainetta.
Ne osat, joilla ei ole sitä kaupallista arvoa siinä ihmisravitsemuksessa, eli se tarkoittaa sitä, että silloin kun siipikarja tulee teurastamolle, niin ne osat, jotka on elintarvikkeiksi hyväksyttyjä, eikä mene sinne pakettiin, ne tulee meille. Eli se on se noin 40% siitä kokonaismäärästä, mitä tulee. Mutta toki sitten, jos teurastamolla tulee vaikka hylkyeriä, jos huomataan, että jossain on jotain, niin kuin, jossain siipikarjassa on jotain sellaista epäilyttävää, ja se menee sitten kakkosluokkaan. Eli se ei ikinä tule lemmikkieläinten rehuun.
Chicken meal is heavily used in majority of meat-based dog foods, being the key source of protein. One of the main reasons why chicken byproducts are used in dog food is that they are a cost-effective way to include essential nutrients. But there is a flip side if we look at chicken production from an animal's point of view. In the egg industry, the sex of day-old chicks is determined at the hatchery. The egg business has no use for the male chicks, they don't produce eggs and don't have the right body structure to be grown for meat. So, within hours of their birth, those male birds are disposed of by electrocution, gassing, or grinding them up alive. It sounds like an extremely brutal practice, and recently there has been political pressure in Europe to find a better method, and research teams in Germany and the Netherlands have achieved technologies that can identify the gender of a chick when it is only a few days into the 21-day incubation period by laser cutting a tiny hole in the egg or inserting a needle to sample the chick's DNA. One can think whether this method would be more righteous or brutality in just another form.
But then again, actually, I would say that nearly no pet food company is using any material from production animals that would be used for humans. Mostly we get carcasses in all dry foods. You have animals that have been through the rendering plant, so they're mostly made of meat and bone meals, which are super ultra processed and is parts that we never would have used.
process called rendering, where this meat is subjected to very, very high heats and pressures in order to basically kill anything that might have been living in there. And that's why traditional pet food, even though the first ingredient is meat, and even though meat is the central ingredient in pet food, cat and dog food is heavily supplemented.
No alku ja lähtökohtana oli tietenkin, että tehdään ihan erilaiset unikit reseptit ja tutkitaan niin kuin mitä on Suomesta saatavalla, että pystytään tekemään paras mahdollinen lemmikin kannalta, otetaan ympäristöasiat huomioon ja totta kai se lemmikin hyvinvointi on niin todella tärkeä. Ja siihen valikoitu verraton tuotesarjoihin tämä raaan kananmunan käyttö ja Suomessa on ollut kananmuna sellainen, että sitä on niin kuin jäänyt hyvin paljon ihmispuolelta niin tämmöistä sivuvirtaa, mitä on toimitettu sitten myös näihin Euroopan muihin maihin jalostettavaksi ja eli sillä ei ole omassa maassa ollut käyttöä. Ja tässä, mistä tehdas sijaitsee, niin kilometrin päässä sijaitsee lähin suuri kananmunapakkaamo, mistä tämä sivuvirta tulee jo huomattava väärä, eli me saadaan se raaka-aineen läheltä.
Actually, 98% of our ingredients come from Germany, and this is what really is very important for us because I was developing the dog food for my own dog, so my approach was very, very high on having a very good quality in the food. And I'm feeding this food 3 times a day to my 3 dogs, so we really want to have a good quality. And as also for the CO2 footprint, it's very important to keep the distance of the ingredients short and to make it more regional. And this is why we always have an eye on this. And we want to reduce the transport emissions and also supporting the regional farmers. This is what's very important by the developing and the ingredients sourcing.
Kyllä varmaan tosi jokaisella teurastamolla on niin kuin insentiivi myydä mahdollisimman paljon elintarvikkeissa, koska se hintataso on niin kuin ihan erilainen. Sitten on niin kuin kaupallisia rajoitteita, eli kuluttajat syö tiettyjä asioita, mutta toista ne ei syö tiettyä. Hyvä esimerkki on vaikka nämä niin kuin kananvarpaat. Mehän suomalaiset kuluttajat ei niitä syödä, eikä eurooppalaisetkaan. En tiedä miksi, mutta ehkä kulttuurinen asia, mutta Kiinassa se on suurta herkkua. Ja niin kuin tiedän, että Suomestakin nämä teurastamot vie niin kuin näitä kananvarpaita Kiinaan saakka. Se on niin kuin kaupallinen asia. Eli se on elintarvikekelpoista, mutta ei löydy vaan kysyntää Euroopassa.
Melkein 70% kaikista meidän tuotetuista tonneista meni kotimaahan, mutta lemmikinruokiin tarkoitetusta raaka-aineista noin 44% jäi kotimaahan.
Joo, meillä on yli 95%, eli se on todella kova. Ja kaikki lihat, kalat, ne on ehdottomasti 100% suomalaisia, sama tietysti viljatuotteet. Vitamiineja ja kivennäisiä muun muassa veisaa, niin ne tulee sitten Saksasta ja Norjasta ja pääasiassa niistä maista.
It may come as a surprise that dog food can contain feather meal as the main source of protein. Feathers are a byproduct of broiler, turkey and other poultry processing operations. Feathers represent 3 to 7% of the weight of the live bird, therefore producing a considerable mass of protein.
Joo, no höyhenet, nehän sisältää aika paljon proteiinia. Ja se on sellaista proteiinia, mitä ihminen ei hyödynnä. Ja se, mitä ollaan nyt tehty, niin ollaan saatu sitä höyhenen jalostusastetta parannettua. Koska aikaisemmin se höyhen meni tonne kakkosluokkaan. Eli toisin sanoen se höyhen meni lannoiteraaka-aineeksi. Ja kun mietitään tällaista hyödynnyspyramidia, eli mihin kannattaa etupäässä tähdätä ravintoaineita, niin jos me laitetaan se höyhen sinne lannoitteeksi ja sinne peltoon, niin siinä aina tulee pientä hukkaa ennen kuin se menee sinne kasviin tai osa ravinteista menee. Niin se on parempi, että se menee suoraan sinne rehuihin, koska silloin se hyödynnysaste on korkeampi. Eli sitä tarkoitetaan tässä yhteydessä tällä vastuullisuudella. Eli me pystytään saamaan se suoraan eläinravitsemukseen, jolloin se proteiini on tehokkaammin käytössä.
Meille tulee niinku sellaista paikkaa raaka-aineet, se on niinku lähtökohta. Ne on testattu salmonellalta. Ja Suomessahan salmonella on hyvin pieni ongelma. Ja sitten tietenkin niin kun ajatellaan tämmöistä, että ympäristössä voi rotaat ja linnut niin levittää salmonellaa, niiden niin kuin pitäminen tontilta pois, niin se on yksi lähtökohta.
We operate in accordance with legislation regarding raw material traceability. Regarding the domestic meat origin raw material, the traceability chain is short, and, if necessary, it is possible to trace the raw material down to the farmer level. The farmer's information is under the control of the slaughterhouses. Domestic slaughterhouses are directly our suppliers. For the consumer, we provide information about the country of origin, for example, Finland. For foreign meat, the chain is longer, but traceability can also be guaranteed as required by legislation. The byproduct market is limited, and, for example, the raw material batches we use from the EU may contain raw material from several EU countries. In this case, the country of origin is the EU. The production line is cleaned after every product, before product changes, to prevent cross-contamination. Raw meat is handled in a separate space from cooked products to control cross-contamination. All raw materials are scanned and confirmed before added to production to prevent incorrect raw materials in product.
In any case, the nice thing about the cultivated meat is that we are growing it in a sterile environment, and so there are no microbes. And so one of the advantages is that then that product can be safely, it could safely be consumed raw or without having it need not be cooked. It need not go into any kind of any heavy processing because it's already quite nutritionally rich and it's clean. So cells, of course, animal cells have to come from an animal. And so in our case, when we think about mouse, depending on the animal and depending on the type of cell that you're using or tissue you're using, the sample can come from different places. So, for example, we also have a chicken cell line that we've derived, and from there, we've derived that cell line from an egg, a chicken egg.
No, tuollain niin kuin munantuottajana, niin ollaan menty jos mietitään vaikka 15 vuotta maailmaa taaksepäin, meillä kanat oli ihan normaalihäkeissä, niitä oli oikeasti tosi ahtaa siinä kohtaa ne kanat. Ja sitten tuli virikehäkit, mistä oli paljon enemmän tilaa ja vähän odottajasysteemiä. Tällä hetkellä Suomessa on kaikki käytännössä jo vapaita kanoja. Ja niillä on mahdollisuus kylpeä ja lennellä ja pääseorsille ja kaikkea mahdollista. Et mun mielestä tällä hetkellä niillä on ihan hyvä tilanne, parempi kuin monella ihmisellä maailmassa.
I think it's wrong to make that comparison. It's making a comparison of relatives, and it's not about that. All animals suffer. All sentient beings suffer. And so instead of looking at a comparison to justify, it is much better that they learn about the sentience of that animal. And chickens are phenomenally sentient. And understand that if they suffer, what can we do to reduce that suffering? And unfortunately, law is always catching up. It's always catching up.
This is actually the base we're walking on, and this is also why we're putting science first and working with universities, with specialized veterinarians. We want to also do a step here and cooperate with companies to reduce plastic in the world. On ingredient side, we source as most as we can locally, and for example with several products we choose potatoes over rice. This is the best example maybe.
Like our main differentiator at PawCo is our innovative and patent pending product called green meat. Green meat is basically a plant-based meat that is AI optimized to make sure that it has all the nutrients that our lovely dogs need. It tastes like meat, looks like meat, and dogs love it. The other factor that makes PawCo unique is our AI platform, that it helps us to create more than 10 different healthy and sustainable recipes in less than a year. Without AI, it could have taken us years, if not decades, to get there.
Well, first off, just like when you make something at home, every recipe that we make here at PawCo Foods begins by just weighing the ingredients out. Nothing we do here is batched, so every ingredient is individually weighed out and accounted for, inspected for both the quantity as well as the quality before it gets into any dog food at all. And all of our ingredients, they were handpicked by food scientists like myself, as well as our team of board-certified animal nutritionists to ensure that our meals are complete, balanced, healthy, and above all, delicious. Once everything is weighed out, we head over to the mixer and begin making our secret sauce, otherwise known as our trademark green bean. We spent a lot of time getting this recipe just right, and it's what really sets us apart from typical options like kibble. After it's mixed, we transfer it to a cooker and allow it to cook to lock in all the flavor and nutrients that your dog loves.
While all dogs are different, our meals are formulated to suit most dogs. Our products are free of animal products and are a great choice for dogs who have allergies to animal proteins. All of our fresh products are made to suit dogs for all life stages, including puppies.
Manufacturers tend to minimize the use of animal ingredients due to the higher contamination risk in animal-based components. Buyers may also question the quality of plant protein in meat-based foods, but research shows that soy protein meal used in dog food has higher digestibility than meat meal. Both types of diets are supplemented similarly and sometimes 100% identically with identical supplements.
A good example of almost identical supplemented meat-based and plant-based kibble is Purina ProPlan Veterinary Diets Dry Foods, HA Hydrolyzed Chicken Flavour Dry Canine Formula and HA Hydrolyzed Vegetarian Flavour Dry Canine Formula. Both have identical ingredient lists, excluding the chicken flavour, which contains hydrolyzed chicken liver and hydrolyzed chicken.
We have veterinary diets, we have prescription diets. These are actually only names that companies have come up with. They also have at least one veterinarian who has been recommending them.
Despite knowing that without feeding trials we can never know the real food quality, we must admit that millions of dogs thrive on commercial diets, and commercial diets is the most popular among the dog owners.
These trials that the dog food companies have to do are super light. So it means that they have to test 8 dogs. 2 of them can actually die or not thrive for some other reason that they can say that it wasn't nutritionally. So 6 dogs from this trial have to come out on the other side. It's 6 months long, and you give only this food.
The importance of feeding trials increased when results showed that dogs only utilized 48 to 62% of nutrients, and that was for reputable dry and canned food. This raises concern about the nutrient absorption of many other not so reputable companies making lower quality products. Larger companies may run simplified trials, while smaller companies often avoid them entirely.
Then you can also do no test at all and say that I took these ingredients from the FEDIAF or the AFCO list and put them together so that the percentages I get of all the nutrients that I now do an analysis of the food, they are in the kind of the levels which are suitable for, let's say, an adult dog or a lactating dog or a puppy dog. So then I can say that this is a complete and balanced dog, let's say for a puppy. And I don't have to test anything on the dog. Well, if you do this one, then you can actually make a whole group, like maybe 20 dog foods that have the same percentage of dog, but they can be fish, or then they can be like lamb, or they can be cow, or they can be whatever, since the percentages of the food will be the same. And then you will just say that, okay, these are complete and balanced because I tested this one group, and then these are made the same way.
It's been 4 weeks since Jon started feeding his dogs vegan food. The gradual transition to a fully vegan diet is now complete, and the dogs will be fed 100% plant-based food in the future. Jon's dogs are doing well, and their cups are empty at every meal. It seems that the food they are eating is suitable for them. As a dog owner, you have almost unlimited options when it comes to feeding your dogs, at least when you look at what's available. For instance, in the US alone, there are well over 1,000 pet food production businesses. The dog food industry wants to invest in many options to help you make the right choices. Recently, this same industry has, in their words, in quotes, become more sustainable and environmentally conscious. There are rules about labelling, but in this jungle of labels, there is a danger that the buyer will get tired of the flood of information and text. And sadly, many manufacturers even put false and misleading information on their packaging. According to new research, product labels and their design may influence consumers even more than may have been suspected, particularly to the extent in which small details can make a difference. For example, the use of a handwriting font on a label can increase the customer's consideration of that product by 30%, and their purchase intentions by 33%. But when we discuss dog food, unfortunately some of the imagery and labelling try to mislead dog owners, promising better than the actual content is.
Ruokasektorilla on paljon tällaista viherpesua, jossa pyritään niin kuin luomaan positiivisempi mielikuva kuin mitä todellisuudessa on. Noin kolmannes niin kuin, ilmastonmuutoksesta johtuu siis ruokajärjestelmästä, ja siellä valtaosan ruokajärjestelmän sisäisistä päästöistä tulee sitten eläinperäisestä ruoasta ja sen tuotannosta ja kulutuksesta. Eli tavallaan tiedetään missä ongelma on ja miten se voisi ratkaista, mutta erityisesti sillä saralla on sitten esiintyy paljon semmoista viherpesua ja yritetään luoda mielikuvia, jotka ei pidä ihan paikkaansa.
FinWatch, located in Finland, is a non-governmental organisation that investigates the global impacts of business enterprises. In May 2024, FinWatch published a report, Footprints in the Air, which looked at product eco-labels with unverifiable claims and some product packaging with invented logos and claims that cannot be verified. The report also included 3 pet food companies operating in Finland. One dog food company's product was labelled as carbon footprint calculated, information that could not be found in detail. And the other company's packaging label stated that the product in question was CO2 compensated, and again no detailed information or calculations were provided. And the third company advertised that it had a zero-emission product family of various kibbles. By January 2025, 2 of the companies had changed their labelling, and the fabricated claims and logos had been removed from their website and packaging. A company that advertised a zero-emissions product line still on its website in January 2025 has removed the word zero emission from its products by March 2025. From a responsibility angle, the zero-emission product sounds absolutely brilliant to anyone's ears, but is it even possible?
No, päällimmäinen ajatus, että se on törkeä valhe. Ei ole niin kuin nollapäästöistä tuotantoa. Toki niin kuin päästöistä voi yrittää kantaa vastuuta esimerkiksi maksamalla tai ostamalla tämmöisiä ilmastoyksiköitä tai hiilikredittejä, missä varmaan, niin kuin, mitä tässäkin keississä on varmaan sitten tehty ja sitten on yritetty väittää, että ne on kumonnut sen tuotteen ilmastopäästöt. Mutta tosiasiassa sen todentaminen on niin kuin äärimmäisen hankalaa. Siihen liittyy se, että nämä niin sanotut hiilimarkkinat, mistä näitä yksiköitä ostetaan, niin on niin kuin, jos tässä aikaisemmin puhuttiin elintarvikeyhtiöiden viherpesusta, niin se on vielä syvempi suo viherpesua. Eli ei ole oikeastaan mun mielestä tällä hetkellä semmoista niin kuin kovinkaan luotettavia keinoja sanota niin, että voisi sanoa kumonneensa päästöt ja sillä tavalla väittää, että on nollapäästöinen.
You have pictures of kind of whole meat pieces, very usually like red or white meat, without any bones or things. You have pictures of carrots and spinach and kale and things that people think are very healthy, or blueberries and curcuma, or things that are in very, very, very small amounts in the foods. You cannot put a picture of a chicken if you don't have minimal amount of 4% of chicken inside. But then the chicken kind of picture you put there has nothing to do with what was put in to make that food.
Terms like natural or real food are misleading marketing terms and used to promote selling of the product. For example, claiming real meat or fresh meat in dry dog food as the first ingredient can be deceptive, as the ranking is here based on raw weight, which is much higher than when the same ingredient is in its dry form.
When we look at the list of ingredients on the packaging, there's a principle that allows us to understand what the dog food is made of. The product has the most of the first ingredient on the list and the least of the last ingredient. But unfortunately, understanding the list is not so simple.
Then there is another problem that we call splitting. So you might also have, like, first is, let's say it's a good food, so the first one is a protein, like fish meal. Then the second one will be corn flakes, and the third one will be vegetables, and then the fourth one will be corn meal. So if you would have put in corn flakes and corn meal together, they together as corn would have been more than the meat. So you split them up in like different type of corns, because all of them can be mentioned separately, and then you avoid having them as the first one. So this is a way that you can kind of cheat the customer.
Mislabeling is another issue. For instance, a company is producing boneless, raw meaty dog food and claims 3 grams of calcium per serving of 1,200 grams of food, around 2,000 calories for 30 kilo 6 months old puppy of extra large breed. This diet is without added bone or any other calcium sources, and it is obviously contradictory to claim such relatively high amounts of calcium in food without any calcium source. The actual amount of calcium based on ingredients calculations is close to 500 milligrams, 6 times less than stated on label.
you can actually, as a consumer, not read from the label in any way if it's good or bad. I mean, I'm trained in this and I have a hard time. It takes me like every package I go through, I can very easily see some things that are not kind of right. But then to really calculate how much protein there is, for example, from meat, is not usually possible to calculate from the labels. It might say chicken, and then it says at least 4% chicken. And that means that for the company to call it a chicken food, there has to be at least 4% chicken. But they don't have to say, if they just say that it's a meat meal or meat byproducts, that then we don't know if there is like 4% of it is chicken, and then there might be 98% of it might be fish. This is the ingredients list, but then you have the next list, which is the constitution of like fats and proteins and carbohydrates, which are the main 3 macronutrients. You only have to mention fats and protein.
In puppies, extremely low calcium and high phosphorus ratio can lead to skeletal deformities, and especially in fast-growing large and extra large breeds of puppies. No clear warning was given on the label, like low levels of calcium in the diet and this food must be supplemented or should not be fed to puppies. In contrary, they claim that food contains, quote, all the vital nutrition your dog needs to thrive. This mislabeling can go even further, where a raw food company listing 85% of fresh meat and organs, but only presenting on the ingredient list the percentages of organs like heart, liver, kidneys, up to 85% in total, with no actual meat added. Organs or offal compared to meat has lower quantity and quality of protein, and they are high in copper and iron, which will be contradictory to feed to dogs with copper or iron storage liver disease. No warning for this is placed on label. And there are many more examples of mislabeling that can make us concerned.